Let's talk about the basics of digitization. First of all, you might be asking, what are Bezier curves and how do I use them? You might have come across these in programs like Adobe Illustrator, for instance. A Bezier curve, as Wikipedia defines it, is a parametric curve that is used in computer graphics, and without getting too much into the math and weeds of it, you can see here in this animated GIF that there is a Bezier curve, the red line that's being drawn. And the way that it is drawn, that it is getting calculated from all these points, P0, P1, 2, and 3 that you see here. And you can see that those points create a three-sided shape. And then from there, the gray lines, there are these green lines that are getting drawn from them. And then from that green line, this blue line is also calculated. So without getting too much into the specifics, just know that Bezier curves are drawn because there's a mathematical calculation that is happening based on the nodes that are drawn. And just for a little bit of terminology, an on-curve point is often called an anchor or a node, and an off-curve point is often called a handle or a control point. For the sake of simplicity, I'll just say on-curve and off-curve. First, to give you some tips, I recommend plotting points at extrema. And these points that I'm talking about are the on-curve points. Extrema is a word that means maximum or minimum. So for a circular shape like this, you probably want to plot your on-curve points on the most top, right, left, and bottom points. And this goes for interior extrema too. So here you can see a sample of where the on-curve points might be on different letters. In a shape such as the O that you see here, you can see there are two shapes because there's an outer contour for the O, and then there is another one that defines the interior contour of the O. We need to make two separate shapes and then plot the extremas on both shapes. Keep in mind that I've simplified this diagram. So when you see a font file, it might not be as simple. And especially in the S, we can see that I've simplified the S, so the spine doesn't exactly have an on-curve point. But if you look at many different typefaces, you can see that a lot of them do have extra points for better control on that spine. Second, I recommend that you try to stick to vertical and horizontal handles if possible. This will make handling your curves a lot easier because if you have too many handles in all these different directions, it's going to be very difficult to keep a very smooth curve, which is something that you often want. So try to do that. But that being said, for some designs, you will have to break this rule. Rules are not definite, they're there as guidelines. So just like keep that in mind. So for an O that is geometric, you can imagine that this would be pretty possible. But for example, as you can see in this S spine that we looked at earlier, the S spine can't have handles that are like that, the off-curve points, because it is on a diagonal slant. And in this sample R, you can see that I wanted a gentle curve in that bowl, that like the middle stroke that you can see here. And because I wanted that gentle curve, I needed to break that rule and have it not exactly in 90 degrees. So the third one is to use your handles proportionately. Remember earlier how we were talking about how Bezier curves are math? So just respect that if you keep a good proportion of the off curve handles to the shape that will probably give you a better control of your contour. So here you can see that the handles, also known as off curve points, are about the same length in this geometric circle. But here, as you can see in the ellipsis, if it's an ellipsis that is longer than it is tall, you can see that the handles will not be the same length. Hope that makes sense. And some common notes, usually it's not a good idea to cross these handles or use any points that you don't need or make them really lopsided. Try to have them share the work, so to speak. And last of all, using overlaps in your design can be very helpful. These darker areas are where I'm trying to show a shape is overlapping. So like imagine that it's transparent plastics that I've overlaid on one another. So where it's purple, you can imagine that's where the pink portion and the blue portion overlaps. So what I'm trying to say is that try to have overlaps for components such as the bar of the A. You can imagine that if you wanted to change how high that bar was, if it was all in one shape, moving the bar up would mess up the A counter. But if it was a separate shape, you could move it up and down without it having any effect on the surrounding shapes. And then also maybe there's multiple ways to do it. So here on the left side is an N where I'd have an overlapping corner in terms of Bezier points. But on the right side, there are two separate shapes that are being overlapped. And both ways are valid ways to do it. And so there are multiple ways of doing the exact same thing, but just make sure that you're always trying to create your designs in the most efficient way possible.